Thank you all so much for being here today. One of the reasons I love coming to these kind of events is because these kind of events remind me, and I hope it reminds the people who work in this building behind me, that the power does not reside in this building or the United States Capitol, but the power resides in you, the people of the United States and the state of South Carolina. The issue today is the same as it has been throughout all of history. Whether man shall govern himself or be ruled by a small elite. Now, the interesting about that statement is that's not my statement. That's the statement from Thomas Jefferson. It's amazing that over 2 centuries later, we're still dealing with the same issue, whether we'll be governed by ourselves or by a small elite in a far-off land called Washington, D.C. This past weekend, I was at my county convention, and they were handing out a little book called Essential Liberty. It's a great little pamphlet. I was reading it this weekend on the downtime, and I found a paragraph in here that I wanted to share with you because it really struck home to me the issue with the federal government and how it infringes upon our individual liberties and our state sovereignty. I want to share this with you, and I hope you'll listen and pay attention because this is some good stuff. In 1916, William J.H. Botker published a pamphlet entitled The 10 Cannots, and here they are. You cannot bring about prosperity by discouraging thrift. You cannot strengthen the weak by weakening the strong. You cannot help the poor man by destroying the rich. You cannot further the brotherhood of man by inciting class hatred. You cannot build character and courage by taking away man's initiative and independence. You cannot help small men by tearing down big men. You cannot lift the wage earner by pulling down the wage payer. You cannot keep out trouble by spending more than your income. What a novel concept. You cannot establish security on borrowed money. You cannot help men permanently by doing for them what they will not do for themselves. Simply put, the central government cannot give to anybody what it does not first take from somebody else. You think that would be common sense to those that we elect to govern us in Washington, D.C., but unfortunately it is not. You know, as Attorney General, I run into folks all the time on the other side of those top 10 cannots, and they always hear from them, but Allen, our intentions are good. We seek to help children and to pay for people who can't afford health care. We seek to help those who cannot help themselves. And I remember that resonated with me because as I stand across from those who argue against those 10 rules I just read to you, I'm reminded of a quote that's in this pamphlet also by Daniel Webster, who stated, "Good intentions will always be pledged for every assumption of authority. It is hardly too strong to say that the Constitution was made to guard the people against damages of good intentions. There are men in all ages who mean to govern well, but they mean to govern. They promise to be good masters, but they mean to be masters." And that's what we have here. There's always going to be good intention, but you know what they say about the road to hell. Ladies and gentlemen, when I became Attorney General, I thought I knew all the issues I was running on. But the funny thing about being a public servant and someone who runs on a platform, you don't always choose the issues. Sometimes they choose you. You know, I ran on protecting us from the overreach of federal government through the law of Obamacare, which is an abomination. And I'm standing with 26 other states fighting the good fight against that health care law, which seeks to do something that no federal legislation has ever done before. That is completely erode your individual liberty and to mandate that you go and enter into a private contract. If the federal government can tell you to go into a private contract, they can tell you to do anything. One issue that I didn't see coming was unionization. My first week in office, we were threatened by the federal government because we passed a constitutional amendment. The same day I was elected, we passed a constitutional amendment that said something that was just horrible, something that was just crazy. You know what it said? It said the right to vote, whether or not to unionize in a company, should be between you and your maker. And the federal government said, no, that should be between you and our union bosses. I can tell you something, that is not a partisan constitutional amendment. I was elected with 54% of the vote. That particular constitutional amendment passed by 86.2% of our state. It's about values. That if you're a public employer, if you have a small business, you should be able to determine how you govern yourself. And we're going to stand up and we're going to fight the federal government. I read recently that 9 union states lost 9 congressional seats to 9 right-to-work states. What does that tell you? Businesses are flocking to places like South Carolina. That's why we picked up a 7th congressional seat, because people are following the businesses. I intend to protect that. I intend to protect you from Obamacare. I intend to protect you from EPA being governed by a bunch of unelected bureaucrats who try to rule over you by administrative fiat because they couldn't pass cap and trade last year. I'm going to close with this quote, because I'll tell you right now, look out over this crowd of folks. You're standing in the hot sun and you're listening to a bunch of elected officials talk to you. But I want you to know something right now. You are the power. You are where the power resides. You are my boss and the boss of every person that has spoken up here today. And the reason you're the power is because it is because of you that we're going to rein in the spending in government at the state and federal levels. It is because of you that we're going to hold those who accountable who refuse to rein themselves in. The quote I want to give you is, the only limit on a government's repression is the tolerance of the people it governs. I look out among you right now and I don't see a whole lot of tolerance for being pushed around. Thank you for remaining vigilant. Thank you for remaining strong. Thank you for being true to your principles, and thank you for giving a guy like me a chance to fight for you as your Attorney General. I will never forget that you are my boss and I am your employee, and I'm out there fighting for you every day. God bless you and keep it up.